Hi, so welcome to my summary video of Discharge by Performance. If you haven't done it before, or if you would like to review it, hopefully this will be a useful starting point. I apologise if the video quality or the sound quality isn't great, or if I'm not great on camera, but obviously this is quite a short notice situation. So I just wanted to recap the rules that we've looked at when it comes to contracts and actually performing them. So the main thing that you need to start off with is the perfect tender rule. The perfect tender rule is key to any contract being completed. And all it means is that the contract must be completed totally, completely, and exactly as the parties first agreed. This is the starting point for all of your contracts. The idea that you've made an agreement based on giving each other consideration, and that consideration will be carried out totally, completely, and exactly as you agreed. If you weren't okay with that, we have a concept called the freedom of contract. You didn't have to enter into that contract. So when you did, you were making a promise that you would do the job totally, completely, and exactly. Now, you'll see in your handouts that this caused a problem in the case of Cutter versus Powell, because the widow was unable to claim any compensation for her husband's journey because he did not complete it totally, completely, and exactly. But the reason he didn't complete the work was because he died in the middle of the voyage. So the judges have come up with ways that may potentially balance the interests of the claimant and the defendant, so that you don't have to pay full price for a contract that wasn't completed totally, completely, and exactly, but the defendant still gets some money for the work that they have performed, so they're not totally out of pocket. It's these rules that you have to be aware of. It's these ideas that you need to be able to apply and explain in your exam with case examples. Now, the case examples are hopefully explained in the handout, and there is a PowerPoint which is also included. I just wanted to go through and summarise those rules again. The first thing that you need to decide, was it perfect? If the performance was done totally, completely, and exactly, then you're entitled to the full payment that you originally agreed. If not, the judges then have to decide if it's fair for you to get anything at all. The key question to start with here is whether the contract is divisible. Divisible, of course, means that you can divide the contract up. That makes it really easy for the judges because they can just divide up the parts that you did from the parts that you didn't do. A good indication that a contract is divisible is if the word per is used. So, for example, you were going to be paid per ton you delivered, or per job you completed, or per hour you worked. If it's a divisible contract, then we are entitled to be paid for the parts completed. You haven't breached the whole contract. You only breached the parts that you didn't do. So if you agreed to work an 8-hour shift and you only complete 6 of those hours, you would be entitled to 6 hours worth of pay. But clearly you wouldn't be entitled to the other 2. You don't need to talk about fair sums or quantum merit here, because it's not up to the discretion of the judge. Remember, judges take a hands-off approach when it comes to making contracts. So all the judge needs to do is look at the price per that was agreed and work it out. Now, in the exam, you don't have to do the maths. You don't have to sit and work out the total cost. You would just say that the claimant is entitled to 5 lots of work per £500, for example. This is easy if the contract is divisible. It's where it's not. That's the problem. We're referring to a whole contract here, where all of the parts of the contract needed to be completed to expect the whole payment package. For example, if you ordered a wedding cake and you agreed to pay £200, you wouldn't pay £50 for the sponge, £50 for the icing, £50 for the decoration, etc. You also probably wouldn't pay per hour that the baker works on it. You would just be charged one price for the work to be done. This makes it more complicated for the judges because the job hasn't been done totally, completely and exactly. So the judges now have to decide whether it has been substantially completed or partly completed. Now, if it's substantially complete, the work is mostly done, perhaps with a few errors, a few minor things to fix. You can see this in the case of Honig versus Isaacs, where there was just a few minor fixes needed for the interior decoration. The claimant is then entitled to a fair sum, or, to use the Latin, a quantum merit payment. Try to use the Latin. You need correct, accurate legal terminology for level 4. If you're entitled to a quantum merit payment, that's all you actually need to state in your exam question. You could, however, make suggestions, although this is not essential. If it's only partly complete, and that will be based on the circumstances of the case or the circumstances of your exam scenario, then the defendant must consent to accepting part performance. That's the key. Are they happy to walk away? Are they happy to get rid of you? Then they would get a quantum merit payment. Now, quantum merit literally means a fair sum. The judge will decide, using their judgment, what a fair sum would be. Your job in the exam will be to decide whether the job was mostly done with a few errors or just partly done, because it's going to give you very different outcomes. The other reason why a contract might be performed totally, completely and exactly is down to timing. It might be that there was a delay to performing the contract. What if it was performed late? And the case of Union Eagle told us that you can be as late as 10 minutes and that's still not total, complete and exact. If there is a delay, then it really depends on whether time was of the essence in the contract. Time of the essence is a phrase you may have heard before, and it simply means really important. How do you know? What are the indications that time might be of the essence? Well, one is if it was expressly stated by the parties when they were making the contract that time was important. So a deadline was set. For example, I want a cake, I'm going to order it for my son's birthday party, it needs to be ready for Saturday 2 p.m. It needs to be ready for the deadline. Time is clearly of the essence. It's important. And if the other side can't deliver on time, they shouldn't accept my offer. Another indication that time might be important is it could be implied by the subject matter. It was clear from what you were dealing with that time was important. So for example, delivering ice cream, it'll melt if it's not done quickly. The final time when we might realise that time is important is what I call the last chance. And this is where there's been prior delay, and then the party turns around and says, if I don't receive it by this date, I want to cancel. That makes clear that time is now ticking. It's really important. Now, if time is of the essence, then it was a condition of the contract. It was central. It was really important. It goes to the root of the contract. And if it's not done on time, if there is a delay, even a delay by 10 minutes, then you're entitled to repudiate. You can end the contract. If not, if the timing wasn't crucial, then it's a warranty. It still hasn't been done totally, completely and exactly because it's late. But you're not entitled to end the contract. You can just get compensation. The last thing that I'm going to mention here, and we'll look again when we study breach, is when you can repudiate. There are two times when you're entitled to repudiate. You can either do it when warned. You are told that they're not going to meet the deadline in advance of that deadline. We call this anticipatory breach. You can end the contract there and then. So for example, if you're told your wedding dress isn't going to get delivered on time, you can end the contract there and then and try and make a new contract. An alternative is at the deadline itself, the point of actual breach. You can wait until the deadline passes and then say the contract has ended because you didn't deliver on time. Whenever you see a reference in an exam question to times or dates, you should be trying to decide whether time was of the essence to that contract. And if a job is unfinished, you should be looking at whether the contract was divisible or whole. Now remember, if you don't complete the contract because the other side wouldn't let you, like in Planch versus Colburn, then you are still entitled to compensation. You're entitled to a fair payment for the work that you did. I hope that helps.